and welcome to Esports Explore, where we get to know members of the esports industry and those affecting the field overall in a positive way. Today, I got a chance to speak with Gus Franco, aka Upmind, an esports commentator that covers a really wide array of games, from CS:GO to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We had a chance to talk about what it was like for him to get into commentary, his aspirations for the future, and how he's able to keep up with his very large game roster and how he practices his commentary. As someone who only follows a very few select scenes, it was really interesting to learn about how he's able to keep up his expertise in a number of different games and also practicing commentary for them to keep at the top of his game. It was a really interesting conversation for myself, and I hope it is for you as well. So I hope you enjoy and have a great rest of your day.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gustavo Domingues, aka Upmind, and I'm a sports and esports commentator based out of Orlando. Really, I specialize in whatever esport is thrown my way. I specialize in Super Smash Brothers, Counter Strike, Valorant, Rocket League, really all this sort. But otherwise, I didn't end up commentating until just a couple of years ago when I was the CEO of an esports organization, Sinai Villagers. It's been a long path since then, but nowadays I'm working with companies such as ESL, DreamHack, Perfect Game, and other big organizations out here in North America.
Awesome, Gus. Thanks so much for taking some time to hang out with me today. Um, and you said, sort of your first commentary experience was with Sinai Villagers. Do you want to give me a short rundown of what that event was like?
Yeah, sure. So that first piece of experience was very interesting for me. It was totally off the cuff. I was uh, supposed to stream our team's FIFA Pro Clubs match because we had only a singular professional esports team at that time, which was just a FIFA team. And they asked me, "Hey, Upmind, can you just stream the game?" And I said, "Okay." And as a joke, I ended up commentating the game because I already had at that time a little bit of sports commentary, a little bit of radio in my local town.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, that ended up kind of going in a direction which I didn't expect. People actually liked the commentary the first time, and I was just like, maybe I should try this a little bit more. And it just, again, I ended up going from there.
Now, was that sort of your first step into esports? Were you involved in the scene in a fan capacity or in any other professional capacities before then?
So this was 2017. I was
Okay.
already a little bit, I guess you could say, interested in esports at around 2016, 2015. I had actually been going to this event called PAX East every year since 2013. So
Mm-hmm.
really, all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, every year I would just set aside a little bit of cash for myself to go to this gaming convention called PAX East. And every year I would see esports becoming more and more prevalent at the event. And then it got to the point where I got a little bit more interested in esports because of that involvement. And then at around 2016, I ended up getting involved with my first esports organization. It's defunct now. It's been a very long time, but that was mainly just me being an advisor, learning the industry. And then in 2017, I ended up taking on a bigger role with this bigger organization, Sinai Villager.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Sinai Villagers, how you got involved, and sort of the main goal of the project?
Yeah, sure. So I joined the team as a not in an esports capacity by any means. I joined the team as a stream leader. So we had a team of Twitch streamers, and I was supposed to be in charge of managing the squad, managing their schedule, what content they were actually pushing out, if we had to do any ad placements. And that in itself was already a great piece of experience to begin with. But from there, I kind of realized the potential that this organization actually had in terms of esports. What I mean by that is that the staff there were super dedicated, hardworking, and they had the potential to make the organization something bigger. At the time, they were only committing themselves to, I think, just Call of Duty trick shotting, which is
Right.
just a sign of the times. And then I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to push this esports project a little bit more for them. and ended up working. I did their first big scout in terms of Super Smash Brothers. For back then, it was a little bit small, but for myself, it was a big step. And now he's like one of my best friends. His name is Jake, aka Claire, from New England. He's a Smash player.
What did that scouting process look like in order to find an ideal Ultimate player for your team?
So at that time, it was mainly looking around at what type of funding we actually had. And that's sort of the tough part about myself at this point of my life. I was, if I'm not mistaken, I was 17 and I was still in high school.
Right.
And the best job that I had at that time was just a part-time job at a coffee shop. So I had to somehow be able to help fund this team through my own pocket, and also the other executives also throwing together cash from their own part-time jobs to try to fund players in this process. So the actual scouting process to pick up this player all started off with just a simple DM. Hi, I've seen how you've been improving throughout the New England Smash scene recently, and really it was smaller at the beginning too. We offered him not to go into too much detail, but mainly just broad, smaller funding at that time. Like, oh, I'll fund this event's entry fees for you, or if you're going to this event in like New York, coming in from like Connecticut, we'll pay for your gas, something of the sort. Like it's small incentives like that to entice them to come into the organization, but it wouldn't be something big time like you would see for like a FaZe Clan or a Cloud9.
Right. But I mean, especially at that level, even in surrounding states, as someone that plays fighting games, a lot of players tend to, sort of do the circuit within their local area. Like I know for where we live, like Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York is like sort of the big tri-state circuit for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, Super Smash Brothers Melee. So I think even for a player just starting out, that's still a really big incentive for them to partner with someone. And it's also like a really big help, because being able to perform at those larger events is what gets them exposure and what gets them overall better player experience as well. So I know you had, it sounds like a really varied role when you first started, but sort of after that, FIFA event, you moved largely into commentary, and that's sort of what you're specializing in now. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And really this first partnership that I had with Jake ended up leading into this, I guess, even more opportunities. Because at that time, again, just growing up, Super Smash Brothers is always a game that you just play, in a sense, with friends. So I kind of saw this game in a new light in terms of their competitive side. And again, at that time, I was going to more physical events, but I was used to seeing like League of Legends. I was used to seeing Counter-Strike, these big time AAA games that have an incredible amount of funding from their developers. Super Smash Brothers doesn't have that. Right. Nintendo doesn't support their game competitively almost by any means nowadays, and especially at this time. So jumping into this community, I felt like it was a lot more grassroots and it was a lot more possible to improve my commentary style. So I ended up asking Glare, just like, hey, are there any events coming up that you're going to be going to? I would love to go with you and potentially try my hand at, talking on the mic. And it just so happened to be that a couple of weeks from this interaction was a C tier event, so a not too big, not too small event called Overclocked 2. Since then, there have been 7 more iterations of Overclocked, and that ended up being my hometown regional, my hometown event. And I went to this event, and I met the tournament organizer for the first time, and it was my first time commentating Super Smash Brothers. I got on the mic, and I didn't do that well. Like it was, hey, everyone's got to start somewhere, guys.
Right.
Everyone's got to start somewhere. And it just so happened to be that this wasn't my best work by any means. I have to give a big shout out to my co-commentator at the time, Skyhook. He understood that I was a new guy, and really that's sort of a skill that you learn as you go through commentary, as you mature in commentary, that you're going to have to deal with newer newer members of the community and how you can build them up. And Skyhook knew exactly how to do that. It gave me windows of opportunity to speak my mind, not in too much of a technical way, but to end up letting my personality flourish a little bit rather than going into again more technical ability. And again, that broadcast didn't end up being all too well because again my knowledge in the game wasn't exactly the best either. But yeah, it was the first of many opportunities in New England, but it was my first physical opportunity in the Smash community.
Well, I think, from watching your commentary, I think you're a very good, at least today, a very good color commentator and a good play-by-play commentator. I sound like a toad, and I'm not terribly exciting, but for the games I do play, I know, an obnoxious amount about them. And so, I can sort of cater my commentary when I do it to my audience, who I also know is, a bunch of people who are interested in micro interactions between players, right?
Right.
I think, even, you're describing Overclocked as like a C-tier event, right? I think even in the context of Smash, that's not a small event by any means. When I think of people like sort of getting their chops in commentary, it's at 16-man locals on a stream setup where somebody brought their laptop. And so, Overclocked, was probably a pretty big leap even for your very first event. How does someone, as you're preparing for that, and in a similar vein, how do you prepare for future events? What does practicing commentary look like for you?
So practicing for me is really studying up on my VODs, and that may not be the luxury that newer commentators might have. Like for example, myself, I commentated a couple of online games this week. Some of them being completely open IP. That's the thing with Counter-Strike, ladies and gentlemen. That if you want to get into a game like CS:GO, if you want to get into a game like say Rocket League or Super Smash Brothers, there's always going to be commentary opportunities out there for you. They might not be the most glamorous, but you can certainly snag them for practice. Like for example, Counter-Strike has this third-party matchmaking service called ESEA, and then they have their own league system. The very beginning of their league system is called ESEA Open, and all of the games are open broadcast, so you can put them up on your Twitch channel, or you can even just spectate them offline. And that's really how I started to practice, in a sense, where I would just pull up these games live. I wouldn't watch whatever live stream was going on. I would just watch it myself in the in-game CS:GO client, and I would just talk about the game, and then potentially record that on OBS and just study up, see what you're doing wrong. A big part of that, again, is just getting into repetition. You have to practice, practice, practice in terms of commentary. It took me a very long time to get into a real groove in commentary. I think maybe a year and a half of consistently going to events, studying up on really what is the art of commentary. And again, a lot of these games, they can be incredibly complicated. Like Super Smash Brothers, there's over 70 characters in the game. You're gonna have to learn moves for every single character. You're gonna have to learn the matchups for at least most of the characters, and that in itself takes an extremely long time. So if you take your time and you really focus your, I guess you could say your time to actually practicing up commentary, again, repetition is key in terms of commentating. And what I mean by that, again, is that when you're actually practicing, you want to just be cognizant of what you're saying and always taking notes. If you want to say something a little bit differently, rewind the VOD a little bit and just re-record what you said. Just kind of try to create the best video, in a sense, that you can of your commentary. And then again, you're not going to have this luxury when you're at a physical event, but you let it slide when you're at home. But just try to create your best self when you're at home, and just keep yourself professionally in shape when you actually show up to an event.
So I know for you specifically, you do commentary for a large variety of games, and you obviously can't take the time to be a high-level player in all of them. And I think that's a really common perspective for folks is when I see a commentator, I expect them to be really great at the game. But, in your case, you're able to study in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, for example, the matchup spread for 70 different characters. You know their frame data, you know their setups, you know their combos, and, that's nuts. So do you find that like this, VOD studying and sort of playing back your voice and listening to how well you're doing, do you find that is, sort of like the most helpful strategy for you as you try to get up to date on all the different games that you do cover?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, repetition in terms of just practicing your VODs or just studying up your VODs is incredibly key. But
Mm-hmm.
really, the first step that you should be taking is actually learning the video game that you're talking about.
Right.
I made the decision to get into commentary without much experience in the game professionally by any means. I mean, not even just professionally, just having a base knowledge of the game. There were a lot of terms that I didn't know when I got on the mic. So
Mm-hmm.
that in itself, that's already something that you need to know when you're starting to really think about getting on the microphone. You're not going to hear a soccer commentator and he's going to forget how many players are on the field or really what's an offside rule, something of the sort. You don't want to pull that off when you're in esports either. You want to at least learn the basic rules of the game. You want to know the basic terms and really just a basic understanding on like how top tiers work or how, maybe for other games, maybe some common setups before you end up actually wanting to commit to commentary. Because again, your knowledge in the game is really going to expand like tenfold when you actually start to study up commentary, because you have to portray that knowledge on the mic. You have to make sure that you're the most professional person in the room when you have that microphone in your hand. So the best way to do that when you're starting off is to play the game. I mean, play the game for fun. Just play it.
Right.
In a sense. Like it seems so tough, and it was tough for me because again, I had an esports organization going on, and now I have to learn a video game and what the professional meta is for the game. Like it's so tough, but I was able to find the time. And also it's interesting when you're learning a game while also in the mindset of a commentator. I felt like that took away from the fun sometimes,
Right.
but maybe that can lead to the fun. Like you start commentating your own games, or when you're playing with your friends, you start like telling them how bad they are in like this super complicated commentary voice.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a fun gag, but it's an interesting time. Just the best thing that I could say is learn the game. Absolutely. That's probably the most pivotal part about actually getting into commentary.
How do you sort of, curate your commentary to your audience to be engaging to, fans who are looking for like that in-depth analysis, and also new players who might be watching the game for the first time?
Well, that depends on the broadcast. Like, I don't want to go on to, per se, Nintendo does this event for Super Smash Brothers, and it's going to be a showcase.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to fill the screen with a bunch of technical gibberish in a sense that really 80% of the fans aren't going to get. But of course, you're always preaching to the hardcore. So whenever I talk about Counter-Strike, I really want to take maybe a round or two where I really want to talk about the technical aspect of the game, but that's really a teaching opportunity for the fans at home. While the rest of the game, I'll keep it pretty fundamental. I'll talk about just a couple of kills here and there. I'll talk about information that's on the screen in a sense. So I'll talk about stats. I'll talk about kills. I'll talk about what are these players' experiences, like how has their season gone, how's their career gone in terms of stat lines. But in terms of actually going technical, read the room in a sense. If you're at a bigger event, you're going to be, kind of having to build up that balance between being incredibly technical and professional and just trying to keep things simple. It's a hard system to actually pull off, and even I have issues with that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to be a little bit more casual, just relax when you're actually on the mic. You got to realize that, some people are just watching this game in their living room, just having a chill time. And maybe you want to just match that vibe. You want to make sure that you're being as conversationalist as possible. But when you want to be technical, go for it. Show it off.
Do you want to sort of break down the difference between, what it's like commentating a live event versus commentating an online event? Things folks might not, expect or realize about either format.
Man, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel at home when I'm at a physical event.
I feel the same way, honestly.
the
I feel infinitely more awkward trying to commentate something online.
Right, because it's like that room. Well, first of all, you have an audience there. Your target audience for your commentary is literally in the room with you. You have
Right.
a room full of like-minded people. So whenever you're at an event like this, you might want to preach to them in terms of your commentary. So that's also another layer of just adding to the difficulty of physical commentary, where actually preparing for an event, your wardrobe, it can vary. There are people that show up to their first event in a full suit and tie. That's good. You look professional. But sometimes, again, you want to match that vibe. If there is a vibe, if you're going to like a 60-man weekly, like you mentioned, you're not going to go in a suit and tie. You're going to go in like a t-shirt and khakis. And that's really just what you have to get used to. There are going to be bigger tournaments and there's going to be smaller tournaments. Again, those are their small 16-man weeklies. And maybe in comparison to maybe an A-tier event or an S-tier event, let's say like an Evo. Evo is like this grandiose stage that you really have to show off every single part of your repertoire as a commentator, and you're watching some of the best players on planet Earth. Preparing for that event is going to be extremely strenuous, but is going to be a very rewarding process. You're going to be taking down stats on the players that are projected to be in that top 8 or potentially that top 16, clean up on your gameplay, clean up on the characters that you're going to be commentating. Again, you're going to be studying throughout the weekend at an event like that. There's always going to be multi-night events. So again, just you would like to think that you're going to a video game event, to play video games, but this is your job. This is your professional moment to shine. Look the part and be the part. You want to be studying all weekend. You want to make sure that you're catching up with all of the action, so you actually see any storylines building up, or if you just see some new tech that a player just pulled off, so you can pull that off in a broadcast, something of the sort. But yeah, a physical event is a whole other beast. And again, your first one is always going to be a little bit nervous. So I always recommend, if you can, have a friend go with you, something of the sort. That will make you feel like a little bit more at home. He'll be there as like sort of like a counselor for you, especially before and after you're on the mic. You don't want to just walk away from the commentary desk and just walk off into the abyss of like 500 people and just
start doing laps in the local or anything like that. Yeah,
exactly. You want to be able to kind of reconcile with someone.
Yeah. So, we talked a good bit about, sort of challenges and benefits of, performing and doing commentary in a live environment. And we also sort of talked about that awkward disconnect you sort of get when you're doing an online event, not being able to be in the room full of people. What are some positives to doing online events? Is there any aspect of it that you enjoy compared to live events?
I mean, I'm a lot more comfortable. I mean, this chair is sick, and I mean, I get to lay back.
I'm back in my own room. I can just hang out. There isn't, 100 people and lined up in chairs in front of me or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole lot more comfortable in a sense, but it all depends on what sort of environment your house is actually like. Are your parents going to care that you commentate as loud? You're not going to be as rambunctious or as expressive as you are in a physical event, depending on your household. So that's also something that restricts you a little bit when you're at home. But also, you get to be a lot more laid back. You get to actually lay into what your personality is actually like on the microphone. Again, that physical environment can be incredibly intimidating. And when you just realize that you're just sitting around your room, yeah, I have a couple of like cool lights around me, but maybe on my left screen, I just have a Discord call with a couple of friends sending me a couple of memes. That sends me right back down to earth. And I realized that really I'm just here trying to, entertain a couple of guys at home. just through twitch.tv on my own broadcast. It's a big disconnect from a physical event, and it can really calm you down when you put yourself in that position.
Jumping ahead a little bit, so we've talked about your expertise in esports. I know you also pursue commentating for traditional sports as well, which is what you're currently studying. Is there anybody in either an esports space or traditional sports space that you sort of look up to as a commentator that you sort of glean a lot of lessons from?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I have a couple of inspirations, both esports and sports. I mean, mainly sports. Myself growing up, I had I guess you could say I had a constant of two things in my room at all times. Just whenever I moved from house to house or town to town, I always had two things: my bed and my radio. I always had a radio because I always loved sports commentary. I love sports radio. And myself growing up in Boston, Massachusetts, it was probably a golden age for our sports, in the 2000s and 2010s, when all of our teams were winning and sports radio was like a lot more bubbly in a sense. Yes, they would get a lot more critical of when we actually won games, and that could be a little bit off-putting, but I really kind of grew some confidence watching up radio broadcasts and just TV broadcasts like that. I always loved the grandiose tone of voice that some of these commentators had. And for that, I have to thank commentators like Jack Edwards, head of the Boston Bruins broadcast. He's a play-by-play for them. And also growing up, I haven't mentioned this thus far, but I'm also a Brazilian. I grew up speaking Portuguese, although my family, although I was born here, my family really only spoke Portuguese when I was growing up. So I spoke that language as my first language, and I watched a lot of Brazilian TV. And it just so happened to be that the most legendary commentator in all of Brazilian sports was at also his golden age at this time, one of his golden ages. My man Galvão Bueno, he commentated all the World Cups. He commentated all the big Formula One races, even volleyball at times. So I was able to kind of learn what kind of pacing he would have. It's, again, like any other Latino commentator, it's super fast paced, super strong, and always punches at the very end of a sentence. You want to leave the spectator satisfied when you're actually done talking. So when you hit him with that last word that just resonates with them, or you leave with that tone of voice that makes them anticipating your next couple of words, that's something that I learned just watching a couple of these sports broadcasters, not only from Latin America, but also up here in the United States. Jack Edwards is also someone who is very expressive. Sometimes he just goes on legitimate rants on the mic. He'll talk about how the referees are making some bad calls, or if there's someone on the Bruins bench just not performing well that night, he'll call them out sometimes. He won't be overly critical on every single broadcast, but when you see that, you can kind of tell that he is starting to get into his own element. You can kind of see that he legitimately has a passion for the sport, and that is something that I want to replicate in my own commentary. I have a passion for sports. I have a fire for competitiveness. So whenever I see something that legitimately, turns a cog in my head and I really want to talk about it, I can if I want to. And that's the power that you have with a microphone. So in esports, at least, I don't have too many, pure inspirations at the moment, really, or just getting into esports, period. One of them certainly was a Brazilian CSGO commentator called Dida. He holds that exact same momentum, but it's like the same thing as really any commentator that commentates from home. It's a really chill vibe. He has the confidence, but he also commentates the entire time. He makes sure that he's trying to translate this incredibly technical match into not exactly the simplest way possible, but in a way that a new viewer could understand. That's really one of the ways that I was able to learn Counter-Strike, and it's the same thing with Smash. In New England, it just so happens to be that one of my favorite Smash commentators is from the same region. It's Hazmat. He was a great mentor to me. He ended up teaching me a lot of things about commentary. He was a great mentor to me in a sense. A lot of tips were given really mid-broadcast sometimes. He would give me some physical nudges or something of the sort, or whenever he noticed that it was my turn to speak, or he would notice that I would know something a little bit more on the screen than he would point at the screen, or he would give me just a little bit of a physical nudge to actually talk. And that kind of taught me, pacing in a sense, how I can actually build off of my color commentator. And again, it's not just these three people. Of course, there are going to be other commentators that I take a little bit of inspiration from, but yeah, those are the main three.
So, throughout our talk, we've talked a lot about technical aspects of commentary, sort of what you look for in, that higher level of the folks you look up to. For someone who, and we've also talked a lot about advice in general, so that all sort of ties into this next question. For someone who's interested in just starting to do commentary, they're a fan of the game they play, or maybe they've just seen esports commentary be done and they're interested in starting in it, what advice would you have for somebody at an entry level, and then what opportunities are available at an entry level?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, always giving some like really broad advice to a new commentator is always extremely tough, and it always varies from esport to esport in a sense. For Super Smash Brothers, best advice I can give you is go to your locals, go to your weeklies, just learn as much of the game as possible. For a game like Counter-Strike, I'm going to recommend you to actually play the game a lot more. Play the game in a semi-professional sense, and that's what ESCA comes into play. Again, you can play league. It's like a 2-month span with a 5-stack team, and that will teach you a lot about what actually goes on in maybe a higher professional game, what kind of synergy the players have with one another, what sort of strategies they're actually inputting. Because sometimes when you're in a broadcast and you see this really grandiose smoke setup, you're going to see a little bit of a constant. You see some constant spots. You see really pacing that you would really only learn in game. It's overall game sense, what I'm trying to say. And maybe talking about a game like Valorant, Valorant has almost that exact same tactical FPS knowledge. So instead of just jumping into a solo queue all the time and just running into a brick wall in terms of teammates, you would want to find a little bit of a 5-stack so you could actually start practicing a little bit with your team. Just put some more time into the game. That's really the best broad advice that I could give for a commentator just trying to get better. And for a commentator actually trying to get their first gig, something of the sort, again, Counter-Strike, head up ESCA. Again, games are always happening. If I'm not mistaken, there's a game pretty much every single night. For Valorant, that's a little bit more tough. It's a little bit more exclusive at the moment, but for sure, you could just start commentating over a couple of games, or even on YouTube, you could pull up some VODs that, from like TSM games or Cloud9 games, something of the sort. For Super Smash Brothers, go to your weeklies and ask the TO, can I get on the mic if they have one? And it's a rarity that they say no. It's a great opportunity for you to just get that first physical opportunity, but also get your chops in.
Yeah, I mean, I was let on the mic at Smash Bros. Tournaments, so I'm sure anybody watching can also be. One more question I want to leave it off on. What are some of your goals for the future? I know you're attending Full Sail now for commentary, and you're also, I know recently you've been doing some more B tier events, which is really exciting. What are some plans for the future, games you want to focus on, educational aspirations, etc.?
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm really focusing on playing up more, S tier events, A tier events, and that's really tough to get in terms of Valorant. Valorant is this new popping game in terms of talent. You see really out of nowhere, some of these big commentators start to come back, and commentators, start to flourish from different games. You see like Simo, you see like Van Silly, who haven't exactly had their moment on the mic in really a long time, but they're really starting to regain that shine back in Valorant. And I'm really just trying to catch that wave at the moment, see if I could pick up a couple bigger events. Again, I have to give a big shout out to the Pittsburgh Knights, who have been giving me a couple of opportunities in the past couple of weeks. And we have an event coming up very soon that's already planned. It's a $20K prize pool event that I plan on doing. That one is going to be slated to be a B tier, if I'm not mistaken. But otherwise, for the long future in terms of goals, I want to become a full-time contracted commentator. I want to make it big. I want to make this my life, and I'm going to school for it, which is extremely unorthodox. I wish I could talk about it a little bit more, but I think our time is running out a little bit. But yeah, and I think I just want to be the top. I just want to be one of the best play-by-play commentators out there, whether it be sports or esports. And I think there's really no end goal. I just want to take this all the way as much as I can.
Well, let's take, like a couple minutes real quick.
Sure.
To just go over, like, is there any aspects of your course load that you find really interesting about your department, about the specific major, about professors, anything you want to touch on super quick?
Absolutely. I mean, not to advertise Full Sail or anything of the sort, but Full Sail has honestly been one of the best decisions that I've made so far in my life. I wasn't exactly the best high school student by any means, but I still had that commentary side to me. And really the only thing that I was passionate about coming out as a senior in high school was commentary, was play-by-play commentary. And really one of the only places that I could go on this earth to really refine those skills was Full Sail University. So I came here, and they expect a level of professionalism out of me, and I expect a high level of professionalism out of my professors. And I certainly get that. All of my professors, my program directors, they're all esteemed commentators, esteemed anchors in the business of sports. And really, it's to be able to be around some of these professionals really on a daily basis and them educating me on different things about the industry. It's a humbling experience in a sense. You think that you're a big shot coming into the school, but then you realize that your professionals have some legitimate creds and could also get you far in your industry. And, in terms of the actual things that they teach us about things that you wouldn't learn by any means getting into the industry, that you would only learn with experience. How are you going to deal whenever, a drunken fan comes up behind you and tries to wave at the camera, or maybe even tries to tug at you while you're on the mic trying to do some on-field reporting? They teach you stuff about that. What are you going to do when your boss calls you in and he wants a new segment to be put on his broadcast, and I don't know, maybe half an hour? You're going to have to, learn how to create a program on the fly or create a narrative on the fly with very limited resources, but you could still do it. It's not fake it till you make it, but you can still put in the work to technically make it. And, it's also things like vocal training that they also provide every couple of months to try to refine your voice. And also, it's not just your voice, it's also pace, tempo, actual articulation of some of your, I guess for myself not having English as my first language, having a little bit more grammar help, is very cool in a sense. So yeah, I think Full Sail is the right place for me at the moment. And they also provide a crap ton of opportunities for myself career-wise. I mean, I'm currently in a position with Orlando City SC as a game day ambassador. I wouldn't have that position if it weren't for Full Sail. And also, I have a very, very big internship coming up in the fall that I have yet to announce. So, yeah, it's something that I've been really dreaming of since I was a kid. I'll give a little bit of a hint for it. I'm a big wrestling fan. I'm a huge wrestling fan. And it just so happens to be that one of the biggest hubs for wrestling is down here in Orlando, and I'm about to get involved.
It sounds super excited. I'm excited for you. I think that's a pretty good spot to leave it off on. Is there any socials or information you want to drop before we end the interview?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. If you want to, follow up with any of my commentary, if you guys want to keep up with really whatever I do in my career, follow me on Twitter at @Upmind_. If you want any tips or anything of the sort, please hit me up in the DMs. My DMs are always open. And again, I would love to talk to maybe the next generation of commentators out there, as technically I'm still a part of that next generation. And of course, if you guys want to keep up with really any personal commentary that I pull off, like I mentioned, any of those grassroots ESEA broadcasts, I still do them to this day, really just for practice and also just to have a little bit of fun. You can follow me on my Twitch, twitch.tv/Upmind. And otherwise, man, I have nothing else to plug. I just want to wish everyone a great day thus far. And thank you guys so much for watching this interview, man. It was seriously such a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.